Hello and welcome back to the OTB channel. Today I'm going to look at voice dictation in Linux, so that's voice to text dictation. Some years ago when I first started using Linux, I explored this in some detail, but it was a little bit of a dark art. I'm pleased to say with applications such as KDE Connect, it's so much easier these days. Let's talk after the intro. Okay, welcome back. An interesting one today, and it's to do with some research that I've been doing over the last week. I spend a lot of my time switching back and forward between my computer, my work laptop, my phone, and all day long the phone's going, I've got texts coming in, I've got emails coming in, and I try and simplify that process. Now, one of the ways that I've found to simplify things is to try and use web-based applications on my Linux desktop, simply because they allow me to stay on Linux and I have to use Windows as infrequently as possible. My work laptop is Windows. I can do nothing about that. And we use the Microsoft Office suite, and all of my Drive and my personal folders are mapped to a corporate version of OneDrive. Again, not something I can do anything about. And I have tried running the likes of Microsoft Office in Wine and so on and so forth, but I've abandoned that now. And what I try and do now is I try and use the online versions of the likes of Microsoft Office and OneDrive. It allows me to stay on my Linux desktop and to spend as little time as possible on my Windows machine. I even use Microsoft Teams for my works meetings now. And some time ago, I talked about Linux users, that there are different categories going from accidental users who've been introduced to the system but perhaps aren't that au fait with Linux itself, all the way through to the philosophers who say you should only use free and open source software, end of story. I'm a little bit of a philosopher. I'm an enthusiast, certainly, but I'm also a pragmatist. I prefer to work with Linux, but sometimes you have to make compromises. And if I have to use web apps, or I have to leverage the Google API to get my work done and keep me on Linux, I will. I know some people won't like what I'm about to talk about today, simply because it is about leveraging the Google API within Linux, but nevertheless, it helps me work, and I thought some of you might be quite interested in this. One of the applications that I perhaps should have discovered a lot earlier before now is KDE Connect, which is an application you install on an Android phone, and you can also install it on your desktop. And it basically joins the two together, and it lets you answer texts on your main workstation. You don't have to go to your phone. You can use it almost as a presentation mouse to do, well, LibreOffice presentations. And it's got a whole load of other features built in. But one of the features that I was most interested in seeing was the fact that it allows you to dictate into any application of your choice. Now, traditionally, I think it's Dragon, naturally speaking, has been used for this on Windows, and that has sort of been the gold standard. I've never used it on a Windows desktop, and I have played with various speech applications in Linux in the past. However, they've normally taken quite a lot of configuring and training before they become usable. However, things have started to change. We now have the likes of Google, Alexa, Siri, all proprietary solutions which work for everybody on their phone, at least. And why not start leveraging some of these technologies into Linux if you need them to make your working life a little bit easier? And that, in a sense, is what KDE Connect is all about. It's about bringing Android and your Linux system together. And it does it does text to speech or speech to text dictation. And I'm sure somewhere under the surface there, it's leveraging the Google API, but it's pretty accurate, and I've been quite impressed with it. So before we go on to look at that, and I'd just like to do a quick demo of what I found, and I'm a week into looking at KDE Connect, let's have a quick look at speech to text translation in Linux and where we are at the moment. Now, in the open source world, speech to text has certainly not been ignored. There's been a huge amount of development going on. We've got the likes of Simon and Julius, which are open source speech engines. The problem has been traditionally that people have found them quite difficult to configure. They've required quite a bit of training, and their accuracy has been less than what you would hope. There also seems to be a real shortage of install and forget apps that just work. And that's the problem. Having said that, I'm sure that the next leap forward in speech recognition is going to come from the open source world. I've got the Linux Links website page open here, and they've actually listed a whole range of different speech recognition tools. And you can see Julius that I've mentioned and Simon there. I tried to install Simon, by the way, in my Arch system, which I'm working on now, and it wouldn't install because of old KDE dependencies. So that's a bit of an issue. But there's a whole range of other things, and there are some speech recognition engines that are really making progress and seem to have great accuracy. Deep Speech, which I believe is a Mozilla project, seems to be particularly good. The problem that we have at the moment is this all needs to be translated into something usable that you can just install, and it's a dictation app. Something like Dragon Naturally Speaking, but an open source variant of it that just works. And whilst Linux has pretty much caught up and overtaken the likes of Windows, it's just about everything I can think of, we're still lagging a little bit behind in terms of a usable application. Which is why, I suppose, for someone like me who just wants to get on and use a tool that helps them in their work, the likes of Google, Siri, Alexa are a godsend. I find that using dictation just saves me so much time. And certainly on my phone, it's become something that I've used all the time. I now, if I'm sending a text, I dictate the text and send it. Simple as that. If I want to take a few notes on my computer, just use it as a scratch pad, really. I use a couple of web apps to do that. And I'll show you these at the end of this demonstration of KDE Connect. So free and open source is the preferred way of going, but in the meantime, I just want something simple, and I thought many of you would as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at KDE Connect. Right, so what you should see on your screens now are KDE Connect, which is this one, and I've thrown the screen of my Samsung mobile phone onto the screen as well, just so you can see that the two interact. I have an Android phone for work, but unfortunately it will only work on Android. So if you use an iOS device, you're out of luck with this at the moment, I'm afraid. But this is what it looks like. You get this little screen, and this is the application that you have to install on your mobile phone. And it does a range of things. A lot of people looking around the internet seem to think that really to get the most out of this app, you should really run it on a KDE desktop, and possibly that's the case. I've found that the mounting the file system on this Samsung device doesn't seem to work in Mate, which I'm showing you it on now. It probably works better with Dolphin, but hey, you know, I'm not really going to use that. So all you do is you install the device, the application on your phone, and you install it on your desktop, and then you pair. And to pair, it's pretty simple. You can pair from either end. You can the devices will find each other as long as they're on the same wireless network, and that's the key thing. I've found that if I have my desktop plugged into my router and my phone obviously attached to the network wirelessly, it doesn't really work. You're better off having both on the same wireless network. Nevertheless, it's pretty good. And if you're not using KDE, which I'm not, I've also downloaded something called the KDE Connect indicator. And what this is, it puts a little icon in your system tray. And if I right click it, you can see, well, you've got the battery level already on my device. The browse device I found not to be great, currently running it on Mate, but I'm sure it would be fine for KDE. I can ring my device. There you go, and hopefully you've all heard that. I can send a file. So let's send something small. Let me see. Let's send that file. And you can see it downloading on the phone. And KDE Connect, it's received a file. So all good. And what else? SMS. Now, I'm not going to open up the SMS dialog box here because you'll see my numbers. But if you receive an SMS on your phone, you can simply, you'll get a notification on your desktop that an SMS has arrived, and you can just reply to it on your desktop. Now, for me, this is incredibly useful. I work in a job where I have my Linux desktop open, I have my work laptop open, which is on Windows. I'm sorry, but it is, you know, that's nothing to do with me. And I also have the phone by my side. And the phone is constantly going. It's ringing, I'm getting emails, I'm getting texts, and being able not to have to suddenly break off from what I'm doing when I get a text and just being able to answer it from here on my desktop has been great. What else can you do? There's a few things. You can run various commands, so I can control my Android device from here. If anyone wants to know how I'm controlling the phone, I use an application called Visor, VYSOR, and there's an app image available for Linux, and it seems to work pretty well. You simply just have to enable USB debugging and plug your phone in, and there you go, job's done. So you can set up all sorts of commands here to run automatically. And you can add a whole range of different commands. They've got some sample commands there. I'm not going to do that now, but what I have done is I've set up one command just to open Alacrity, and I can do this from my phone, and if I hit that, Alacrity opens up. The extent that you'd use that, I don't know. If you like running commands from your phone on your desktop, well, you know, you've got lots that you can do. So okay, that's fine. What I found really useful, though, I used to have a wireless mouse, like a presenter mouse, so that when you're away from your screen, or a laptop even, and you're doing a presentation, you don't have to be on top of it. So I can go to a not multimedia control. I can go to a slideshow remote control, and you see there that you've got, backwards and forwards. And if I bring up a presentation here, and this is a presentation that I actually did on Linux file permissions some time ago, and I can just click on the phone and go between the different pages, and even use a pointer. I'm not sure that that's working particularly well. No. But nevertheless, for clicking through the various pages, it works really well. You can control multimedia, so this actually relates to something I've got here, and I'm not capturing desktop audio here, but I can just press the go, he says. Look at something that is very different from the norm. So it's a remote control, essentially. That's what this is. It's a remote control. So it does a range of things, and the extent to which you use these different bits and pieces will obviously depend on, well, what you find useful. The thing I find the most useful, though, is the remote input command. Now, when you go to remote input, you will need to set Google voice typing. And I found that in order to do this, I'm just going to tap to pause. In order to do this, on my Android device, I had to install a new keyboard called Gboard, which is the Google keyboard. But just to give you an example of how this works, and it's already typing, let's just stop that and delete it. I'm going to tap to speak, so you should see that there. And this is Genie I'm tapping on. So this is a test, and I'm typing into Genie with text input. And let's see what happens. Full stop. Now, one thing I have found on this, and it'll continue typing, I'm sure, is that it doesn't seem to recognize any punctuation other than new full stop, new paragraph, new line, etc., etc. It doesn't really work, which is a little bit annoying, but for the sake of just writing quick notes, it's absolutely fine. It takes a little while to catch up with itself, but once it has caught up with itself, it's fine. As you can see, it's doing what it's doing. Now, I found this particularly useful because I spend an awful lot of time making quick notes and breaking off from what I'm doing when somebody rings me and says, Steve, can you do this? Can you do that? And I just make a quick note on the desktop. So just being able to say it and have it essentially just leave me a notepad there to use after is great. What I have also been experimenting with is when I've got to do a short report or perhaps compose an email for later, I can be sat back there with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and I can just dictate it into, well, anything you like. And at the end of the day, I can just do my copy and paste. I do still have to set the paragraphs, set the commas, fiddle about a little bit with it, but generally it's pretty accurate. So what have we got here? So this is a test, and I'm typing into Genie with text input, and let's see what happens. Now, I've found on this it will continue typing. I'm sure that it doesn't... Sorry, where are we? I'm sure is that it doesn't seem to recognize any punctuation than on new, etc. It doesn't really work, which is a little bit annoying, but for the sake of just writing quick notes, it's absolutely fine. It takes a little while to catch up with itself, but once it has caught up with itself, it's fine. I don't know where 9AS came from, but I think that's, as you can see, it's doing what it's doing. So, it's usable. It's getting better and it's usable. And for me, this is just one more of those tools that I think makes life easier and makes you more productive. I have a little joke with people who say, oh, you guys who fiddle with your computers all the time, most of us just want to get on and do stuff. Well, I get on and do stuff as well. And I found that just having a tool like this allows me to get on and do stuff. So that's KDE Connect. I'm quite impressed at the moment. I think it's really good. I like the fact that I can just use my phone and connect to my desktop and dictate to my whatever application that I've got. But it's not the only application I use, and I'll still come back to web apps on occasion, and there's a couple that I use all the time. Now, of course, if you don't have your phone with you, KDE Connect really isn't going to do the job. And yes, as I said at the beginning, that there's lots of work going on as far as Linux is concerned for capturing speech and converting it to text. But if you just want something quick, I thought I'd just share with you a couple of resources that I've tended to use in the past, both of which leverage the Google API. So if you're not a fan of Google, this isn't going to be for you. But if you want to just works and it works for you, it works for me certainly, I think they're pretty good. They're not Linux specific, and one of them is called, it's a website called Dictation.io, and you can see that now on your screen. And if I go to launch Dictation, you get this screen essentially. It's already set my language as UK, and as it says, I can easily change it if I want to. This only works in Chromium or Chrome. I have tried to get it working in Firefox and it doesn't work natively. Whether or not you could perhaps install an extension or something, possibly, but I tend to be a Chromium user anyway. So we've got basically a scratch pad up here, and I'm just going to click start and I'm going to dictate a couple of lines to it. One of the advantages this has is that it does conform to commands such as new paragraph, new line, comma, and I found it to be pretty accurate. So if I do start, allow it to use my microphone, and then say, okay, let's go. Start typing, please. New paragraph. This is just a line to test how accurate this is. Full stop. New line. And it's very easy to write some notes. There's a little bit of a delay, but I found it to be probably one of the most accurate speech-to-text applications that I've found that's easily usable without any setting up, full stop. Right, so let me hit stop. So this is just a line to test how accurate this is, and it's very easy to write some notes. There's a little bit of a delay, but I found it to be probably one of the most accurate speech-to-text apps that I've found that's easily usable without any setting up. And it pretty much works for me. So you can have the browser open, and if you've got some notes that you just want to dictate, great, you can do that. I would be remiss, of course, to miss out Google Docs. Needless to say, in order to get the speech to text, you again have to use Chromium or Chrome, which in itself is annoying, but you access the speech from the Tools menu. I'm going to set my language. So English, United Kingdom, and then I just click to speak. Full stop. New paragraph. And that hasn't done the new paragraph. Full stop. New paragraph. It's done the new paragraph now. Comma. And this is generally pretty accurate as well. Full stop. New line. Right. I say it's pretty accurate, but actually it does cut itself off sometimes. But for the most part, it's pretty good. Full stop. New line. New line. It's ignoring my new line command. So let me just say new paragraph. So again, if you're sat at your computer and you just need to take brief notes, these sort of web applications are pretty good. Full stop, new paragraph. In fact, I've used this before, Google Docs, to dictate a whole report. Full stop, new paragraph. I have had to do a little bit of editing afterwards, comma, but you would expect that anyway. Full stop, new paragraph. And you can see exactly how it works. Full stop, new paragraph. You need to remember your commands. Full stop, new line. Full stop. It's not accepting the new line command at the moment, which is quite annoying, so you just have to use paragraphs. But for the most part, it's great. One of the things that I really like about this is the fact that I can do this on my phone with a Google Docs app, and irrespective of what device I'm on, I can access Google Docs from my Google account and I can pick up the document that I've done. So again, really useful. But I do find it easy to just use my phone to dictate in. So for the time being, I think KDE Connect is ruling the roost as far as dictation software is concerned for me. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sure there's quite a few people will say, well, you know, you really need to set up something that's Linux-based and free and open source. And I agree that would be the preference. And maybe I've missed something obvious. Maybe there is something out there that can be installed and will just work for me. I think we're just slightly out on this camera. There we are. And if there is, please let me know in the comments. Something easy that's not going to take loads of time to train that I can just fire up and dictate to. But in the meantime, I think KDE Connect is pretty good. I'm impressed. I'm annoyed with myself really for not trying it beforehand, because I think it's a great app. You don't need to be running Plasma. As I've just shown you on the Mate desktop, it works fine. I believe there is an extension for GNOME as well to get it working, G Connect or GS Connect. But anyway, it works more generally. Clearly, you're not going to have the system tray icon on all your window managers, so that limits its functionality, but it will still, you know, do the dictation. So that's all good. Right, guys, that's it for today. As I say, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please come and join me on Library. Come and say hello on the Facebook group. And I would just like to thank my Patreons. And if I can just bring that screen over here so that I can read it. I'm talking about Devon and Corbinian, Robert, Gary, Aristotelis, Stormpick, Stephen, Mike Long, David Bird, Entropy UK, Richard, Ty, Philip, Forrest, Scott, and Patrick. Thanks, guys. Your help is really appreciated. And I'll see you sometime next week. I'm not quite sure when that's going to be. I was meant to be on holiday on Friday, and work asked me to cancel my holiday because we had such a lot on. And so I'm going back in next week. I'm not quite sure when I'm breaking for Christmas because we're getting battered at work at the moment, but I can't complain given the situation. So I'll see you when I see you, at the latest next weekend. Thanks, guys.